Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Fire Emblem 6 Sword of Seals Let's Play. Today, we're going to be taking on the first chapter and establishing our group. Chapter 1, The Dawn of Destiny. Men and dragons once lived in harmony on this land. However, this harmony was broken when the men suddenly started to invade. In a great war known as the Scouring, both sides fought over control of the continent. The laws of nature were twisted from vast amounts of power that were released. The dragons were defeated and disappeared from the face of the continent. Mankind then began to spread its forces throughout to populate the land. The people of the continent of Emblem have been spreading technology and civilization for some time now, after the dragons had been defeated in the Scouring. In the west resides the Kingdom of Etruria, which has the highest level of civilization in Emblem. The Kingdom of Bern, with a powerful military and a practical and pragmatic attitude about life, is located in the east. These are the two strongest nations in Emblem, and the lesser nations are located between them. There is the Lycian Alliance, which is under a joint relationship of various marquesses. The people of the Knights Union of Ilia are hard at work at cultivating the snowy wastelands in the north. In Sakai live various clans which ride through the plains on horseback. Although there were occasional clashes between nation-states, there was a general sense of balance of power and peace in Emblem. However, that balance was suddenly disrupted. King Zephiel, ruler of the Kingdom of Bern, has sent out his forces to conquer the rest of the Emblem. Bern's forces invaded Sakai and Ilia and mercilessly massacred all those who stood against them. And now Bern has shown signs of invading the Lycia Alliance. A youth named Roy was in Lycia's largest territory, Ostia. He was sent as a transfer student to train to become the next Marquess of Pharae. However, Eliwood, who had fallen ill, has sent for Roy to return home. Just around that time, Lilina, the daughter of Hector, had traveled to Lycia to pay her respects to Eliwood. After getting the message, Roy hurried back home, taking with him his loyal knights and Bors, a knight from Ostia, responsible for Lilina's safety. The story begins when Roy had reached an area on the outskirts of Pharae. Chapter 1, Dawn of Destiny. A boss. The residents of the castle have hidden themselves inside. Heh, even Eliwood, the greatest knight in Lycia, can't beat an illness, eh? Hehehe. You were right when you said there wouldn't be many soldiers around here, because they're getting ready to take on Bern. Of course, who do you think I am? But you never know when reinforcements are going to come. Alright. Kill off the guys in the castle while we still got time. Then the treasure is all ours. Heh. Castles ain't the only places with treasure. Let's go ransack the villages and get some loot. Why, Master Eliwood? The bandits from the Balm Mountain are attacking us. I see. Blast. If I weren't in this state, I would teach them a lesson. Mr. Eliwood? Lilina, you must hide somewhere. This castle is going to become a battlefield. No, sir. I will fight too. Don't be ridiculous. If something happened to you, I wouldn't know what to say to Hector. To my father, but... It's going to be alright. Roy should almost be here by now, so if we can hold our own until then, we can drive off these bandits. Merlinus. I want you to send a messenger to Roy to informing him of this attack immediately. Yes, sir. Oh, it's Lance. What's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry? Master Roy! Bandits have appeared and are attacking the castle as we speak. What? Is Lord Elwood safe? He's inside, defending against the bandits' attacks. But I don't know how long he can last with his illness. Excuse me, Lance, is Lady Lilina safe? Are you from Ostia? Lady Lilina is in the castle. She should be alright. As long as Lord Elwood is with her, but he can't last forever. No. I shouldn't have let Lilina go to the castle before me. Lord Roy, regret won't solve anything. We must recapture the castle. Walt is right. We must hurry. Yeah, you're right. Alright, let's go. We're going to save those trapped in the castle. And we find ourselves with a small band of knights to take on these bandits and drive them away from Castle Pharae. Our knights consist of, in order, Alan, who's a cavalier, who serves under Roy. He specializes in lances, but also is adept with swords. And as cavalier, he has relatively well-rounded stats as well as a high move. They're generally a very good class, and they're widely used in speedrunning communities as well. They are usually the most popular class in that regard. And as far as stats, Alan specializes in strength, whereas his partner, or counterpart, I should say, Lance, is the other cavalier. He is the cavalier who rode down as a messenger, who also serves under the Pharae banner, who also specializes in lances with an ability to use swords as well. However, he's carrying a javelin. Javelins are a ranged lance. We will get into the weapon triangle shortly. But they are able to hit from an extra space away. And he instead specializes in speed and skill, as opposed to Alan's strength. Walt is an archer. Archers are unique in the way their spaces are set up. They can stand one space. They have to stand one space away to hit a target. So Walt would have to be standing here to shoot this bandit. He couldn't attack it from here. That allows the enemy to not be able to repose and attack back, unless they also have a ranged weapon. Marcus is an old paladin. He is the class-changed version of a cavalier, and as you can see, he has very strong stats. He is very adept with lances, but is also capable of wielding swords and axes. He's carrying a silver lance, which is an incredibly powerful weapon, especially this early in the game. However, it has a very low durability of only 20, and also requires an A in lances to wield at all. Marcus is very strong in the early game. However, as with most pre-promotes, they will wane off later into the game as other units class change themselves and have far more stats. Bors is a knight. Knights have very low move but very high defense. As you can see, he has 11 defense compared to Alan's 6. He only has 4 move compared to Alan's 7, though, and he only uses lances. He has a C in lances, so it's not bad. And generally has a very low speed as well, so he'll usually only hit once, but he likely won't take much damage. And then there's Roy. Roy is our lord. He is the main character of the story, and he is the one who we're supposed to be relating to, in the most part, as far as seeing the story through his eyes. Roy is relatively weak at the moment. He's only level 1, has low HP. He has decent skill and speed. Speed and luck. His skill and defense are okay. He has a movement of 5, so a middle ground between the Cavaliers and Bors, and about the same as Walt. and he specifically wields swords. For the start of this chapter, I'm going to be giving Roy the iron sword from Marcus, because we will not be using Marcus. The rapier that Roy wields is similar to an iron sword in power and has slightly higher hit. Also has a crit rate of 10, which we'll get into. However, it's also strong against armored enemies and mounted enemies. A mounted enemy is something like a cavalier, and an armored enemy is something like boars. So he will deal extra damage to each of those. But for now, we're gonna run through this chapter. We're gonna give Lance Boris' lance, because we are not going to be using boars either. We're actually really only going to be using the Cavaliers and Roy from this chapter. I am not a big fan of Wolt or Boris. Boris is a very subpar knight. He is rather lacking stats overall, and I generally find that there are better options later on, as well as the fact that genuinely knights are not a very good class in this game, like this specific iteration of Fire Emblem. This is the 6th Fire Emblem game in the series, however, this is the first for most people. In fact, this is likely one that most people haven't even played. This game has never been officially released in English, like with an English release. This is a fan-made translation that I am playing, but this is the first Game Boy Advance game. Sorry. Damn, reinforcements already, but they ain't getting into the castle so easily. This is the first Game Boy Advance game, meaning that prior to this, all of the games were located either on the SNES or the NES. This is a very old game series dating back to the late 80s, and has continued ever since. The most recent release is Fire Emblem Three Houses. However, that has departed much from the usual, both in good and bad ways, in my opinion. But now's not the time for that. This game has a very high difficulty curve in comparison to the actual Northern American releases of the other titles, such as Fire Emblem 7, which is actually a prequel to this game. You play as Eliwood, who is Roy's father, as well as Hector and a third character named Lyn. This game was made first, however. But generally, this game is more difficult than that one, in my opinion. Now, I have not actually finished this game. I have played a large majority of it in the past. However, I have not finished it. And the reason for that being, I had played it back when I was in college and just lost track of it whenever I was in the middle of classes and lost my save file. However, I've wanted to come back and play it again, and I thought, what better way than as a Let's Play? I'm a very knowledgeable person when it comes to Fire Emblem, at least I like to think so. I'm no professional or anything, but I'm relatively adept at the game. And I'd like to share some of that information with people who are new, and also give people who are really experienced someone to laugh at. Now, the way I will be structuring this Let's Play is I will play through chapters until in full per episode. So this chapter will be the entirety of this episode will be the entirety of chapter 1, and the next episode will be the entirety of chapter 2, and so on and so forth. Now, this whole Let's Play is being pre-recorded before anything is shown, primarily due to the fact that I have no idea how long any chapter could take to record, and I'm already on a very restricted time schedule for recording, as anyone who's watching my Pokemon Nuzlocke would know. I still work a full-time job, and in fact, I'm currently working overtime every week, and I work very far away from home, over an hour. So I spend upwards of 14 hours a day at the moment during the week just working. So I usually only get a chance to record on the weekend, and with the variable timing for this game's recording times, and the fact that I'm not sure when I'll get around to it. I'm just planning on having a full Let's Play ready to go, and I will release it daily. That's the current plan. So you can expect to see another episode of this tomorrow. And the day after that. And the day after that. So if you enjoy Fire Emblem, look forward to that. And if you don't, feel free to check out some of my other content. Now, if you've never played Fire Emblem, I would recommend giving this series a try. The gameplay is very engaging. I really enjoy the gameplay. I always have since I was younger. And I feel that it's a really good introduction to strategy RPGs for people in some games, and other games are just a very good expansion on the strategy RPG genre. Like, this game itself is not a good starting point for anyone who has never played the games before and also is not very familiar with strategy RPGs. For this, I would recommend Fire Emblem 8 Sacred Stones, or alternatively, the Awakening or Fates games on the 3DS. Awakening was a huge breakthrough for the Fire Emblem series. It was actually on the verge of collapsing due to just a lack of exposure and sales. And Nintendo had given Intelligent Systems one more game to make a profit to an extent that would be content for them. And Awakening managed to blow that out of the water. Luckily, so the series has survived. However, with that success has come a lot of change. Some Fire Emblem veterans are accepting of the change. Others are really not a big fan of it. But now is not really the time. I'm finally going to explain the weapon triangle. There are 3, what I'm going to call melee weapon types in the game. There is a sword, there's axe, and there's lance. And they form almost a little rock, paper, scissors mechanic. Sword is better than axe. I'm not better than, good on. Sword is good against axe, axe is good against lance, and lance is good against sword. And what changes that has is effectively, you have your hit rate on the bottom right, you have your damage right below that, and your crit, and that shows up every time you attack. You can see it in the preview menu. And the weapon triangle having an advantage gives you a set boost to your hit, as well as a +1 to your damage against the enemy that way. Right there, we just talked to the lady and got 5,000 gold. And I believe the hit bonus for having the weapon advantage is, I want to say 10% in this game. It's changed from 10% to 15% and rapidly switched back and forth between the games. It's different in every game, in fact. I want to say it's 10% in this game. 10% in 1 damage. If I am wrong, I will show it on screen. Next episode, I'll be going further into how the interlockings of the mechanics work in the game. But for now, I'd like to just give people a basic idea. I'm actually standing on what is called terrain. It's the forest in this case. And as you can see in the bottom left corner, it gives me a +1 to defense and a +20 to avoid while I'm standing on it. So it gives the enemy an even smaller chance to hit me, and gives me even more defense. And any unit can take advantage of terrain as long as they're standing on it. So now that they're standing on the plains, they lost that bonus. But we will be finishing up this chapter shortly, and then the next chapter will be out next episode, tomorrow. We will be using a lot more characters past this chapter. It's just that early on in this game, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the characters, and I will just be using characters that I like and characters that I find interesting, as well as being useful units. I'm not using what I would call the best characters all the time, but I would consider them all to be definitely pretty skilled fighters and respectable units. So in this case, the lance has a higher base damage than the iron sword. As you can see in the bottom right, the iron sword has an attack of 11, while in combination with Lance's stats, and has an attack of 13 with the lance. So I lose hit rate, which is accuracy, I lose 15 accuracy by going to the lance. However, since Lance is able to strike twice with his speed, he can kill the archer with the lance, but he cannot finish him off with a sword. So we're going to take the chance of missing and go for the lance. And it paid off. Now, Alan is somewhat weakened. I want to see how much damage this guy can do to Alan. He can only hit him for 6. So in worst case scenario, Alan will live 2 hits in a row. And as you can see, Alan has a 2% chance to crit. Any crit number you see is a percentage. And any crit that lands deals triple damage. But we'll go into that more when we see one. And down goes the bandit. Get some good experience for Alan. And now, I'm going to take a look at our experience. As you can see in the bottom left, Roy is a level 2 Lord with 74 experience. And Lance has 83. And Alan has 47. So they're all level 2. And normally I try to feed the boss, who does not move. He gives a lot of experience. As you can see, he's a relatively strong enemy. The boss will not move, even though it lists him as having a move space, because the goal for this chapter is to seize the spot he's standing on. I have to get Roy onto that spot, and that'll end the chapter. So he won't leave it, because then I would win. So the way you deal with him is you can fight him. Now, technically, I could, if I chose to, since he has a steel axe with only a range of 1, I could choose to bring up Wolt, who has a range of 2, and just shoot him repeatedly from a distance to slowly kill him. He will regenerate health every turn, but while being on the gate. I want to say it's something like 10%, and he regenerates that every turn. However, in this case, I'd rather start giving the experience to Roy. So since this guy can do so much damage to Roy, he has a low chance of hitting Roy at 29%, but he will hit him for 13 damage, whereas Roy only has 18 health. So what we're going to do is, since after I act with Roy, I can't do anything else with Roy, I'm going to just end my turn right here in front of the boss and let the boss attack me first, so that then I can react to it and act accordingly, whether I get hit or not. And we'll see if that pays off. You damn idiots. Can't you guys take care of these dastards? And our plan did pay off. The boss missed us, so now I'll show off another technique that you can use here. Instead of just waiting for the boss, alternatively, you can have characters who are capable of rescuing your main character, which is this function right here. What will happen is Lance will pick up Roy and carry him with him. And then in turn, when you have a character that has a rescued character with them, another character who's able to also pick up that character can take them from them and set them back down. So if Roy happens to get hit during this fight when I attack, I will pick him up with Lance, then I'll, with Alan, take him from Lance and set him back down so that next turn he can still act. And we'll see if that plays out. If not, I'm sure you'll see me use it in the future and I will point it out. And he does, actually. There we go. It's unfortunate that we got hit, but it is fortunate to show off this mechanic. So since now I can't act with Roy, and Roy's low on health, we don't want to risk Roy getting hit, because if any character gets killed in this game, they're dead. You either have to restart your chapter, or you lose that character forever. And in Roy's case, you are actually not allowed to lose Roy. If Roy dies at any time in a chapter, the chapter is forfeit and you have to restart. So here's him regaining his health, not experience. And it actually appears like it rounds down for 10%. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take the Vulnerary from Lance during using trade, and we're going to go to items, and we're going to use the Vulnerary to restore 10 HP to Roy. And that'll put Roy at 15, putting him out of instant death range from the boss. And meanwhile, since this is going the way it is, I'm going to run this up, or run Marcus up, just in case, because, oh, Marcus does not have one. It's going to be fine. I'll deal with inventory later. Roy should be fine. I was planning on giving Roy an additional Vulnerary, but this should be okay. I'm highly doubtful I'll get hit twice in a row. And I don't. And then I am very confident that Roy will be able to land a killing blow. However, seeing as Roy sucks at leveling up, right there, every time a character levels up, there is a set chance for a stat to increase based on the character. It's a percentage, and basically that number is rolled for each stat when a character levels up. And it goes down the line, and if the number happens to meet or exceed... No, meet... Yes. Happens to be that number or lower on the percentage. So say Roy has a 70% chance to gain HP every level. A number is rolled, and if that number is 70 or less, then out of 100, then Roy gains an HP. And that cycles through all of the stats, and every character has a set percentage for what they can gain. A lot of this information can be found on Serenity's Forest, which is a really good website that I like to use for these games. So since Roy leveled up, though, we're actually going to move him out of the way. And I'm going to give the kill to Alan. Because Alan... Oh. What's your chance of getting hit? This is a very dumb and risky play. But I really want to give Alan this experience. And I'm relatively confident that he will hit. And not get hit. However, if I want to be really smart, what I'll do is I'll give him the javelin. And have him attack out of range. And have a low... Oh, that's a really low hit rate. Mayhaps I should have just taken a turn to heal. Really just didn't want to die to that for no reason. You know what? Roy's really hard to use. We're just going to give it to Roy. Just give it to Roy and get it done with. There we go. What the? Strong. And bosses usually give an absolute ton of experience when you defeat them. Characters earn experience for each round of fight that they're in. However, they also gain even more experience for defeating an enemy. But that's the end of the chapter. Father! Lilina! Roy, is that you? Roy! Father, Lilina! Thank goodness you're alright. Roy, thanks for coming this far. Of course, Father. How's your health? I'm fine. Still alive? See? But Roy, you do know why I called you back here. I am to take over your role of leading Pharae's military and join the Lycia Alliance army. Yes, as you know, Byrne has started to conquer Lycia. We must follow the ancient rule and send out our military to protect the land of Lycia. Yes. I really didn't want to send you out because you were still studying. But I'm not well. I would only be a hindrance to everyone else. Father. Mr. Ellerwood, I will accompany Roy. My father is in charge of Lycia's main army, and I could use my magic to be of some help to Roy. No, Lilina, you must return to Ostia. Why? With Hector's absence, there is no one currently sitting on the throne of Ostia. The people must be feeling uptight as well. You being the daughter of the Marquess must take the throne until Hector returns, and ease the tension of the people. Am I wrong? No, sir. Roy, first you must go to the Byrne border and meet the mercenary group that I have arranged contact with. I'll send Merlinus along with you. He'll be very helpful with his knowledge. Thank you for everything, Father. You'll be fine. You can do it. Go and fight, and show them who you are, the next Marquess of Pharae. Yes! Boris, I have something to ask of you. No, my lady. I will accompany Roy in his travels, and swear to protect him with my life. Thank you, Boris. Roy, be careful. I know. You too, Lilina. And with that, that's the end of Chapter 1. And I'll meet you guys back here next time for Chapter 2. I'll see you then.